Preface of the Song Celestial or Bhagavad Gita. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jothi. The Song Celestial or Bhagavad Gita, translated by Sir Arnold. To India. So have I read this wonderful and spirit-thrilling speech by Krishna and Prince Arjun, held discoursing each with each. So have I writ its wisdom here, its hidden mystery. For England, O our India, as dear to me as she. Arnold. Preface. This famous and marvelous Sanskrit poem occurs as an episode of the Mahabharata, in the 6th or Bhishma Parva of the great Hindu epic. It enjoys immense popularity and authority in India, where it is reckoned as one of the 5 jewels, Pancharatni, of Devanagari literature. In plain but noble language, it unfolds a philosophical system which remains to this day the prevailing Brahmanic belief, blending as it does the doctrines of Kapila, Patanjali, and the Vedas. So lofty are many of its declarations, so sublime its aspirations, so pure and tender its piety, that Schlegel, after his study of the poem, breaks forth into this outburst of delight and praise towards its unknown author. Magistrorum reverentia brachimanisi interesancatissima, pietatis afficere ferture ergote primuma, vatisi sangatissime numinisco faefeta, quisquis tandem inter mortales, dictus tu fioris carminis buius octor, cuius oraculis mens ad excelsa quaque aeterna quod divina Cumenineraua, cudam delectonte rapitere primum in quam salvere ubeo e vestigia thorsam peradore. Lawson re-echoes this splendid tribute, and indeed, so striking are some of the moralities here inculcated, and so does the parallelism, ofttimes actually verbal, between its teaching and those of the New Testament, that a controversy has arisen between pundits and missionaries on the point whether the author borrowed from Christian sources or the evangelists and apostles from him. This raises the question of its date, which cannot be positively settled. It must have been inlaid into the ancient epic at a period later than that of the original Mahabharata. But Mr. Kashinath Telang has offered some fair arguments to prove it anterior to the Christian era. The weight of evidence, however, tends to place its composition at about the 3rd century after Christ, and perhaps there are really echoes in this Brahminic poem of the lessons of Galilee and of the Syrian incarnation. Its scene is the level country between the Yamuna and the Saraswati rivers, now Kurnool and Jind. Its simple plot consists of a dialogue held by Prince Arjuna, the brother of King Yudhishthira, with Krishna, the supreme deity, wearing the disguise of the charioteer. A great battle is impending between the armies of Kauravas and Pandavas, and this conversation is maintained in a war chariot drawn up between the opposing hosts. The poem has been turned into French by Bonhoff, into Latin by Lasson, into Italian by Stanislaw Gatti, into Greek by Galanos, and into English by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Davis, the prose transcript of the last named being truly beyond praise for its fidelity and clearness. Mr. Telang has also published at Bombay a version of its colloquial rhythm, eminently learned and intelligent, but not conveying the dignity or grace of the original. If I venture to offer a translation of the wonderful poem after so many superior scholars, it is in grateful recognition of the help derived from their labors, and because English literature would certainly be incomplete without possessing, in popular form, a poetical and philosophical work so dear to India. There is little else to say which the Song Celestial does not explain for itself. The Sanskrit original is written in the Anushtubh metre, which cannot be successfully reproduced for Western ears. I have therefore cast it into our flexible blank verse, changing into lyrical measures where the text itself similarly breaks. For the most part, I believe the sense to be faithfully preserved in the following pages. But Schlegel himself had to say, "Ire conditiare bus misam per poiuta fosta, mentim recte divinasse firmare nausema." Those who would read more upon the philosophy of the poem may find an admirable introduction in the volume of Mr. Davis, printed by Messrs. Turbner and Co. Edwin Arnold, CSI. End of preface. Recording by Jothi. Chapter 2 of the Song Celestial, or Bhagavad Gita, translated by Sir Edwin Arnold. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jothi. Sanjaya said, "Him filled with such compassion and such grief, with eyes tear-dimmed, despondent, in stern words the driver, Madhusudan, thus addressed." Krishna said, "How hath this weakness taken thee? Whence springs the inglorious trouble? Shameful to the brave, barring the path of virtue? Nay, Arjun, forbid thyself to feebleness. It mars thy warrior name. Cast off the coward fit. Wake, be thyself. Arise, scourge of thy foes." Arjuna said, "How can I, in the battle, shoot with shafts on Bhishma or on Drona, O thou chief, both worshipful, both honorable men? Better to live on beggars' bread with those we love alive, than taste their blood in rich feast spread, and guiltily survive. Ah, where it were, who knows, to be victor or vanquished here, when those confront us angrily, whose death leaves living drear. In pity lost, by doubtings tossed, my thoughts distracted turn to Thee, the Guide I reverence most, that I may counsel learn. I know not what would heal the grief burnt into soul and sense, if I were earth's unchallenged chief, a god, and these gone thence." Sanjaya said, So spake Arjuna to the Lord of Hearts, and sighing, "I will not fight," held silence then, to whom, with tender smile, O Bharata, while the prince wept despairing twixt those hosts, Krishna made answer in divinest verse. Krishna said, "Thou grievest where no grief should be. Thou speakest words lacking wisdom. For the wise in heart mourn not for those that live, nor those that die. Nor I, nor thou, nor any one of these ever was not, nor ever will not be. For ever and for ever afterwards, all that doth live, lives always. To man's frame as there comes infancy and youth and age, so come there raisings up and layings down of other and of other life abodes, which the wise know and fear not. This that irks thy sense life, thrilling to the elements, bringing thee heat and cold, sorrows and joys, It's brief and mutable. Bear with it, Prince, as the wise bear. The soul which is not moved, the soul that with a strong and constant calm takes sorrow and takes joy indifferently, lives in the life undying. That which is can never cease to be. That which is not will not exist. To see this truth of both is theirs who part essence from accident, substance from shadow. Indestructible, learn thou, the life is, spreading life through all. It cannot anywhere, by any means, be anywise diminished, stayed, or changed. But for these fleeting frames, which it informs with spirit deathless, endless, infinite, they perish. Let them perish, Prince, and fight. He who shall say, Lo, I have slain a man; he who shall think, Lo, I am slain; those both know not. Life cannot slay. Life is not slain. Never the spirit was born. The spirit shall cease to be never. Never was time it was not. End and beginning are dreams. Birthless and deathless and changeless remaineth the spirit for ever. Death hath not touched it at all, dead though the house of it seems. Who knoweth it exhaustless, self-sustained, immortal, indestructible, shall such say, I have killed a man, or caused to kill? Nay, but as when one layeth his worn-out robes away, and taking new ones saith, These will I wear to-day, so putteth by the spirit lightly its garb of flesh, and passeth to inherit a residence afresh. I say to thee, weapons reach not the life, flame burns it not, waters cannot overwhelm, nor dry winds wither it. Impenetrable, unentered, unassailed, unharmed, untouched, immortal, all arriving, stable, sure, invisible, ineffable, by word and thought uncompassed, ever all itself. Thus is the soul declared. How wilt thou, then, knowing it so, grieve when thou shouldest not grieve? How if thou hearest that the man new dead is like the man new born, still living man, one same existent spirit? Wilt thou weep? The end of birth is death, the end of death is birth. This is ordained. And mournest thou, chief of the stalwart arm, for what befalls which could not otherwise befall? The birth of living things comes unperceived, the death comes unperceived. Between them beings perceive. What is there sorrowful herein, dear Prince? Wonderful, wistful to contemplate, difficult, doubtful to speak upon, strange and great for tongue to relate, mystical hearing for every one. Nor wotteth man this, what a marvel it is, when seeing and saying and hearing are done. This life within all living things, my Prince, hides beyond harm. Scorn thou to suffer, then, for that which cannot suffer. Do thy part, be mindful of thy name, and tremble not. Naught better can betide a martial soul than lawful war. Happy the warrior to whom comes joy of battle, comes as now, glorious and fair, unsought, opening for him a gateway unto heaven. But if thou shunnest this honourable field, as Kshatriya, if, knowing thy duty and thy task, thou biddest duty and task go by, then shall be sin, and those to come shall speak thee infamy from age to age. But infamy is worse for men of noble blood to bear than death. The chiefs upon their battle chariots will deem 'twas fear that drove thee from the fray, of those who held thee mighty-souled, the scorn thou must abide, while all thine enemies will scatter bitter speech of thee to mock the valour which thou hadst. What fate could fall more grievously than this? Either, being killed, thou wilt win Swarga's safety, or, alive and victor, thou wilt reign an earthly king. Therefore, arise, thou son of Kunti, brace thine arm for conflict, nerve thy heart to meet, as things alike to thee, pleasure or pain, profit or ruin, victory or defeat. So minded, gird thee to the fight, for so thou shalt not sin. Thus far I speak to thee as from the Sankhya unspiritually. Hear now the deeper teaching of the Yog, which holding, understanding, thou shalt burst thy karma bala, the bondage of wrought deeds. Here shall no end be hindered, no hope marred, no loss be feared. Faith, yea, a little faith, shall save thee from the anguish of thy dread. Here, glory of the Kurus, shines one rule, one steadfast rule, while shifting souls have laws many and hard, specious but wrongful deem the speech of those ill-taught ones who extolled the letter of the Vedas, saying, "This is all we have or need," being weak at heart with wants, seekers of heaven, which comes, they say, as fruits of good deeds done, promising men much profit in new births for works of faith, in various rites abounding, following whereon large merit shall accrue toward wealth and power. Albeit, who wealth and power do most desire, least fixity of soul have, such least hold on heavenly meditation. Much these teach from Vedas concerning the three qualities. But thou be free of the three qualities, free of the pairs of opposites, and free from that sad righteousness which calculates self-ruled. Arjuna, simple, satisfied. Look, like as when a tank pours water forth to suit all needs, so do these Brahmins draw texts from all wants from tank of holy writ. But thou want not, ask not, find full reward of doing right in right. Let right deeds be thy motive, not the fruit which comes from them, and live in action, labour, make thine acts thy piety, casting all self aside, contemning gain and merit, equable in good or evil. Equability is Yog, is piety. Yet the right act is less, far less, than the right thinking mind. Seek refuge in thy soul, have there thy heaven. Scorn them that follow virtue for her gifts. The mind of pure devotion, even here, casts equally aside good deeds and bad, passing above them. Unto pure devotion devote thyself, with perfect meditation comes perfect act, and the right-hearted rise more certainly, because they seek no gain, forth from the bands of body, step by step, to highest seats of bliss. When thy firm soul hath shaken off those tangled oracles which ignorantly guide, then shall it soar to high neglect of what's denied or said, this way or that way, in doctrinal writ. Troubled no longer by the priestly lore, safe shall it live and sure, steadfastly bent on meditation. This is Yog and peace. Arjuna said, "What is his mark who hath that steadfast heart, confirmed in holy meditation? How know we his speech, Keshava? Sits he, moves he like other men?" Krishna said, "When one, O Partha's son, abandoning desires which shake the mind, finds in his soul full comfort for his soul. He hath attained the Yog, that man is such, in sorrows not dejected, and in joys not overjoyed, dwelling outside the stress of passion, fear, and anger, fixed in calms of lofty contemplation. Such a one is Muni, is the sage, the true recluse. He who to none and nowhere overbound by ties of flesh, takes evil things and good neither desponding nor exulting, such bears wisdom's plainest mark. He who shall draw, as the wise tortoise draws its 4 feet safe under its shield, his 5 frail senses back under the spirit's buckler from the world which else assails them, such a one, my prince, hath wisdom's mark. Things that solicit sense hold off from the self-governed, nay, it comes the appetites of him who lives beyond depart, aroused no more. Yet may it chance, O son of Kunti, that a governed mind shall sometime feel the sense storms sweep, and wrest strong self control by the roots. Let him regain his kingdom, let him conquer this, and sit on me intent. That man alone is wise who keeps the mastery of himself. If one ponders on objects of the sense, there springs attraction. From attraction grows desire. Desire flames to fierce passion. Passion breeds recklessness. Then the memory, all betrayed, lets noble purpose go, and saps the mind, till purpose, mind, and man are all undone. But if one deals with objects of the sense, not loving and not hating, making them serve his free soul, which rests serenely Lord, lo, such a man comes to tranquillity, and out of that tranquillity shall rise the end and healing of his earthly pains, since the will governed sets the soul at peace. The soul of the ungoverned is not his, nor hath he knowledge of himself, which lacked, how grows serenity? And wanting that, whence shall he hope for happiness? The mind that gives itself to follow shows of sense seeth its helm of wisdom rent away, and, like a ship in waves of whirlwind, drives to wreck and death. Only with him, great Prince, whose senses are not swayed by things of sense, only with him who holds his mastery, shows wisdom perfect. What is midnight gloom to unenlightened souls shines wakeful day to his clear gaze. What seems as wakeful day is known for night, thick night of ignorance, to his true seeing eyes. Such is the saint. And like the ocean, day by day receiving floods from all lands, which never overflows, its boundary line not leaping and not leaving, fed by the rivers, but unswelled by those, so is the Perfect One. To his soul's ocean the world of sense pours streams of witchery. They leave him as they find, without commotion, taking their tribute, but remaining sea. Yea, whoso, shaking off the yoke of flesh, lives lord, not servant of his lusts, set free from pride, from passion, from the sin of self, toucheth tranquillity. O Partha's son, that is the state of Brahm. There rests no dread when the last step is reached. Live where he will, die when he may, such passeth from all plaining to blessed Nirvana, with the gods attaining. Here endeth Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled Sankhya Yoga, or the Book of Doctrines. End of Chapter 2. Recording by Jothi. Chapter 3 of the Song Celestial, or Bhagavad Gita, Translated by Sir Arnold. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jothi. Arjuna said, Thou whom all mortals praise, Janardana, if meditation be a nobler thing than action, wherefore then, great Keshava, dost thou impel me to this dreadful fight? Now am I by thy doubtful speech disturbed? Tell me one thing, and tell me certainly, by what road shall I find the better end? Krishna said, I told thee, blameless Lord, there be two paths shown to this world, two schools of wisdom. First, the Sankhyas, which doth save in way of works prescribed by reason. Next, the Yog, which bids attain by meditation, spiritually. Yet these are one. No man shall escape from act by shunning action. Nay, and none shall come by mere announcements unto perfectness. Nay, and no jot of time, at any time, rests any actionless. His nature's law compels him, even unwilling, into act. For thought is act in fancy. He who sits suppressing all the instruments of flesh, yet in his idle art thinking on them, plays the inept and guilty hypocrite. But he who, with strong body serving mind, gives up his mortal powers to worthy work, not seeking gain, Arjuna, such a one is honourable. Do thine allotted task. Work is more excellent than idleness. The body's life proceeds not, lacking work. There is a task of holiness to do, unlike world-binding toil, which bindeth not the faithful soul. Such earthly duty do free from desire, and thou shalt well perform thy heavenly purpose. Spake Prajapati, in the beginning when all men were made, and with mankind the sacrifice. Do this, work, sacrifice, increase and multiply with sacrifice. This shall be Kamaduk, your cow of plenty, giving back her milk of all abundance. Worship the gods thereby. The gods shall yield thee grace. Those meats ye crave, the gods will grant to labour when it pays tithes in the altar flame. But if one eats fruits of the earth, rendering to kindly heaven no gift of toil, that thief steals from his world. Who eat of food after their sacrifice are quit of fault. But they that spread a feast all for themselves eat sin and drink of sin. By food the living live, food comes of rain, and rain comes by the pious sacrifice, and sacrifice is paid with tithes of toil. Thus action is of Brahma, who is one, the only, all-pervading, at all times present in sacrifice. He that abstains to help the rolling wheels of this great world, glutting his idle sense, lives a lost life, shameful and vain, existing for himself, self-concentrated, serving self alone. No part hath he in aught, nothing achieved, naught wrought or unwrought toucheth him, no hope of help, for all the living things of earth depends from him. Therefore, thy task prescribed, with spirit unattached gladly perform. Since in performance of plain duty man mounts to his highest bliss. By works alone Janak and ancient saints reached blessedness. Moreover, for the upholding of thy kind action thou shouldest embrace. What the wise choose the unwise people take. What best men do the multitude will follow. Look on me, thou son of Pritha. In the three wide worlds I am not bound to any toil. No height awaits to scale, no gift remains to gain. Yet I act here. And if I acted not earnest and watchful, those that look to me for guidance, sinking back to sloth again because I slumbered, would decline from good, and I should break earth's order and commit her offspring unto ruin. Bharata, even as the unknowing toil, wedded to sense, so let the enlightened toil, sense freed, but set to bring the world deliverance and its bliss, not sowing in those simple, busy heart seed of despair. Yea, let each play his part in all he finds to do. With unyoked soul, all things are everywhere by nature wrought in interaction of the qualities. The fool cheated by self thinks, "This I did, and that I wrought." But thou strong armed prince, a better lessoned mind, knowing the play of visible things within the world of sense, and how the qualities must qualify, standeth aloof even from his acts. The untaught live mixed with them, knowing not nature's way, of highest aims unwitting, slow and dull. Those make thou not to stumble, having the light, but all thy dues discharging, for my sake, with meditation centered inwardly, seeking no profit, satisfied, serene, heedless of issue, fight. They who shall keep my ordinance thus, the wise and willing hearts, have quittance from all issue of their acts. But those who disregard my ordinance, thinking they know not, and fall to loss, confused and foolish, soothe the instructed one doth of his kind, following what fits him most, and lower creatures of their kind, in vain contending against the law. Needs must it be the objects of the sense will stir the sense to like and dislike. Yet the enlightened man yields not to these, knowing them enemies. Finally, this is better, that one do his own task as he may, even though he fail, than take tasks not his own, though they seem good. To die performing duty is no ill, but who seeks other roads shall wander still. Arjuna said, "Yet tell me, Teacher, by what force doth man go to his ill, unwilling, as if one pushed him that evil path?" Krishna said, "Karma it is, passion it is, born of the darknesses, which pusheth him, mighty of appetite, sinful and strong is this, man's enemy. As smoke blots the white fire, as clinging rust mars the bright mirror, as the womb surrounds the babe unborn, so is the world of things, foiled, soiled, enclosed in this desire of flesh. The wise fall, caught in it. The unresting foe it is of wisdom, wearing countless forms, fair but deceitful, subtle as a flame. Sense, mind, and reason, these, O Kunti's son, are booty for it. In its play with these it maddens man, beguiling, blinding him. Therefore, thou noblest child of Bharata, govern thy heart, constrain the entangled sense, resist the false, soft sinfulness which saps knowledge and judgment. Yea, the world is strong, but what discerns it stronger, and the mind strongest, and high over all the ruling soul? Wherefore, perceiving Him who reigns supreme, put forth full force of soul in thy own soul. Fight, vanquish foes and doubts, dear hero. Slay what haunts thee in fond shapes, and would betray. Here endeth Chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled Karma Yoga, or the Book of Virtue in Work. End of Chapter 3. Recording by Jothi. Chapter 4 of the Song Celestial, or Bhagavad Gita, translated by Sir Arnold. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Krishna said, "This deathless yoga, this deep union, I taught Vivasvatha, the Lord of Light. Vivasvatha to Manu gave it, he to Ikshavaku, So passed it down the line of all my royal rishis. Then, with years, the truth grew dim and perished. Noble Prince, now once again to thee it is declared, this ancient lore, this mystery supreme, seeing I find thee votary and friend. Arjuna said, Thy birth, dear Lord, was in these later days, and bright Vivasvatas preceded time. How shall I comprehend this thing thou sayest, from the beginning it was I who taught? Krishna said, Manifold the renewals of my birth have been, Arjuna, and of thy births too. But mine I know, and thine thou knowest not. O slayer of thy foes, albeit I be unborn, undying, indestructible, the Lord of all things living, not the less, by Maya, by my magic which I stamp on floating nature forms, the primal vast, I come and go and come. When righteousness declines, O Bharata, when wickedness is strong, I rise from age to age and take visible shape, and move a man with men, succouring the good, thrusting the evil back, and setting virtue on her seat again. Who knows the truth touching my births on earth and my divine work? When he quits the flesh, puts on its load no more, falls no more down to earthly birth, to me he comes, dear Prince. Many there be who come, from fear set free, from anger, from desire, keeping their hearts fixed upon me, my faithful, purified by sacred flame of knowledge. Such as these mix with my being. Whoso worship me, them I exalt. But all men everywhere shall fall into my path, albeit those souls which seek reward for works make sacrifice now to the lower gods. I say to thee, here have they their reward. But I am He made the four castes, and portioned them a place after their qualities and gifts. Yea, I created the reposeful, I that live immortally, made all those mortal births. For works soil not my essence, being works wrought uninvolved. Who knows me acting thus unchained by action? Action binds not him. And so perceiving, all those saints of old worked, seeking for deliverance. Work thou as, in the days gone by, thy fathers did. Thou sayest, perplexed, it hath been asked before by singers and by sages, what is act, and what inaction? I will teach thee this. And, knowing, thou shalt learn which work doth save. Needs must one rightly meditate those three: doing, not doing, and undoing. Here thorny and dark the path is. He who sees how action may be rest action, he is wisest amid his kind. He hath the truth. He doeth well, acting or resting, freed in all his works from prickings of desire, burned clean in act by the white fire of truth. The wise call that man wise, and such a one, renouncing fruit of deeds, always content, always self-satisfying. If he works, doth nothing that shall stain his separate soul, which, quit of fear and hope, subduing self, rejecting outward impulse, yielding up to body's need nothing save body, dwells sinless amid all sin, with equal calm, taking what may befall by grief unmoved, unmoved by joy, unenvyingly the same in good and evil fortunes, nowise bound by bond of deeds, nay, but of such a one, whose crave is gone, whose soul is liberate, whose heart is set on truth. Of such a one, what work he does is work of sacrifice, which passeth purely into ash and smoke consumed upon the altar. all's then God. The sacrifice is Brahm, the ghee and grain are Brahm, the fire is Brahm, the flesh it eats is Brahm, and unto Brahm attains he who in such office meditates on Brahm. Some votaries there be who serve the gods with flesh and altar smoke, but others some who, lighting subtler fires, make purer rite with will of worship. Of the which be they who, in white flame of continence, consume joys of the sense, delights of eye and ear, forgoing tender speech and sound of song, and they who, kindling fires with torch of truth, burn on a hidden altar stone the bliss of youth and love, renouncing happiness, and they who lay for offering there their wealth, their penance, meditation, piety, their steadfast reading of the scrolls, their lore painfully gained with long austerities, and they who, making silent sacrifice, draw in their breath to feed the flame of thought, and breathe it forth to waft the heart on high, governing the vantage of each entering air, lest one sigh pass which helpeth not the soul, and they who, day by day denying needs, lay life itself upon the altar flame, burning the body worn. Lo, all these keep the rite of offering, as if they slew victims, and all thereby efface such sin. Yea, and who feed on the immortal food left of such sacrifice, to Brahma pass, to the unending. But for him that makes no sacrifice, he hath nor part nor lot even in the present world. How should he share another, O thou glory of thy line? In sight of Brahma, all these offerings are spread and are accepted. Comprehend that all proceed by act. For knowing this, thou shalt be quit of doubt. The sacrifice which knowledge pays is better than gifts offered by wealth. Since gifts' worth, O my Prince, lies in the mind which gives, the will that serves, and these are gained by reverence, by strong search, by humble heed of those who see the truth and teach it. Knowing truth, thy heart no more will ache with error, for the truth shall show all things subdued to thee, as thou to me. Moreover, son of Pandu, wert thou worst of all wrongdoers, this fair ship of truth should bear thee safe and dry across the sea of thy transgressions. As the kindled flame feeds on the fuel till it sinks to ash, so unto ash, Arjuna, unto naught the flame of knowledge wastes works draws away. There is no purifier like thereto in all this world, and he who seeketh it shall find it, being grown perfect in himself. Believing, he receives it when the soul masters itself, and cleaves to truth, and comes, possessing knowledge, to the higher peace, the uttermost repose. But those untaught, and those without full faith, and those who fear are shent, no peace is here or otherwhere, no hope, no happiness for whoso doubts. He that, being self contained, hath vanquished doubt, disparting self from service, soul from works, enlightened and emancipate, my Prince, works fetter him no more. Cut then atwain with sword of wisdom, son of Bharata, this doubt that binds thy heart beats. Cleave the bond born of thy ignorance. Be bold and wise. Give thyself to the field with me. Arise! Here endeth Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled Jnana Yoga, or the Book of Religion of Knowledge. End of Chapter 4. Recording by Jothi. Chapter 5 of the Song Celestial, or Bhagavad Gita, Translated by Sir Arnold. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jothi. Arjuna said, Yet, Krishna, at the one time thou dost laud surcease of works, and at another time service through work. Of these twain, plainly tell which is the better way. Krishna said, To cease from works is well, and to do works in holiness is well, and both conduct to bliss supreme. But of these twain the better way is his who working piously refraineth not. That is the true renouncer, firm and fixed, who, seeking not, rejecting not, dwells proof against the opposites. O valiant Prince, in doing, such breaks lightly from all deed. It's the new scholar talks as they were two, this Sankhya and this Yoga. Wise men know who husbands one plucks golden fruit of both. The region of high rest which Sankhyas reach, Yogins attain. Who sees these twain as one, sees with clear eyes. Yet such abstraction, Chief, is hard to win without much holiness. Whoso is fixed in holiness, self-ruled, pure-hearted, lord of senses and of self, lost in the common life of all which lives, a yoga yukt, he is a saint who wends straightway to Brahm. Such a one is not touched by taint of deeds. Not of myself I do. Thus will he think who holds the truth of truths. In seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, when he eats, or goes, or breathes, slumbers or talks, holds fast or loosens, opens his eyes or shuts, always assured, this is the sense world plays with senses. He that acts in thought of Brahm, detaching end from act, with act content, the world of sense can no more stain his soul than waters marreth enamelled lotus leaf. With life, with heart, with mind, nay, with the help of all five senses, letting selfhood go, Yogins toil ever towards their soul's release. Such votaries, renouncing fruit of deeds, gain endless peace. The unvowed, the passion-bound, seeking a fruit from works, are fastened down. The embodied sage, withdrawn within his soul, at every act sits godlike in the town which hath 9 gateways, neither doing aught nor causing any deed. This world's Lord makes neither the work, nor passion for work, nor lust for fruit of work. The man's own self pushes to these. The Master of this world takes on himself the good or evil deeds of no man, dwelling beyond. Mankind errs here by folly, darkening knowledge. But for whom that darkness of the soul is chased by light, splendid and clear shines manifest the truth, as if a sun of wisdom sprang to shed its beams of dawn. Him meditating still, Him seeking, with Him blended, stayed on Him, the souls illuminated take that road which hath no turning back, their sins flung off by strength of faith. Who will may have this light who hath it sees. To him who wisely sees, the Brahman with his scrolls and sanctities, the cow, the elephant, the unclean dog, the outcast gorging dog's meat, are all one. The world is overcome, even here, by such as fix their faith on unity. The sinless Brahma dwells in unity, and they in Brahma. Be not overglad attaining joy, and be not oversad encountering grief, but stayed on Brahma, still constant let each abide. The sage, whose soul holds off from outer contacts, in himself finds bliss. To Brahma joined by piety, his spirit tastes eternal peace. The joys springing from sense life are but quickening wombs, which breed sure griefs. Those joys begin and end. The wise mind takes no pleasure, Kunti's son, in such as those. But if a man shall learn, even while he lives and bears his body's chain, to master lust and anger, he is blessed. He is the Yukta. He hath happiness, contentment, light within. His life is merged in Brahma's life. He doth Nirvana touch. Thus go the Rishis unto rest, who dwell with sins effaced, with doubts at end, with hearts governed and calm. Glad in all good they live, nigh to the peace of God. And all those live who pass their days exempt from greed and wrath, subduing self and senses, knowing the soul. The saint who shuts outside his placid soul all touch of sense, letting no contact through, whose quiet eyes gaze straight from fixed brows, whose outward breath and inward breath are drawn equal and slow through the nostrils still and close, that one with organs, heart and mind constrained, bent on deliverance, having put away passion and fear and rage, hath even now obtained deliverance, ever and ever freed. Yea, for he knows me who am he that heeds the sacrifice and worship, God revealed, and he who heeds not, being Lord of worlds, lover of all that lives, God unrevealed, wherein who shall find surety and shield. Here ends Chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled Karma Sannyasa Yoga, or the Book of Religion by Renouncing Fruit of Works. End of Chapter 5. Recording by Jothi.